Hey there, and welcome back to the Total Potential Podcast. It's Cole. I'm so excited today to be sharing a conversation with my friend, mentor, teacher, and one time drill sergeant, Richard Thompson. Richard is a former US Navy SEAL, and he has taken the lessons that he learned as being an elite warrior and helps people change their lives. He has worked with some incredible people from executives to professional sports teams. He is a unbeatable mind coach. He runs so many different things through their SEAL Fit programming, and he now has his own coaching branch called UVU coaching, right? It is you against you. Like I cannot wait to share the lessons that Richard has learned, as really being the best of the best and helping us who maybe aren't elite warriors apply that to things like parenting and family and really going for big goals. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Richard, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Hey, thank you, Cole. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to have a chance to talk with you.
Yeah, this is going to be so fun. So, I shared with our listeners a little bit about your background, but tell us a little bit because I mean, in this coaching space, both like steel fit style, one-on-one coaching style, like you bring something really special to that space. So, what would you say are some of the highlight or formative events that led you to even working in this arena?
Yeah, so it started. I grew up playing whatever sport I could. I never thought of well, I definitely did not think of myself as a student, but athletics was the direction for me. I love if we could compete, if there's a ball, I'm playing it, didn't matter what it was. And I was always curious. And I remember being in junior high, just fascinated with like, why do people do what they do?
Mm,
And I remember picking up a book called The Inner Game of Tennis by Timothy Galway. And I read that, and that was like self help. It was high performance. I didn't play tennis, but I was just starting to pick up the game of golf.
okay.
And so there
Also,
was
an
no,
inner game.
there, yeah, there was no inner game of golf at the time. I think he may have gone and written one of those later. But I've always fascinated, like, why do some people perform and other people freeze?
Hmm.
And that set me down a path. And I've always been curious about that from, way back then. And it's this curiosity, this peak of my interest that keeps me going down this desire to understand not only myself, but others. And
Mm,
now I've learned enough where I can take my knowledge and my experience and share that with others so they can see how powerful they are. And
mm.
now as a coach, I get to explore that with other people and continue my development, my exploration, because there's no finish line to any of this. As a coach, it really is the best avenue for me to explore my own potential and my own growth because I always want to be in front of my clients,
Mm.
never talking about what could be possible, but the ability to talk about what I've been able to do and the path that I've been on so that I can encourage other people to walk that path as well.
Yeah.
So there's no like, hey, you should have seen me in high school, like what was that? Napoleon Dynamite, like Uncle, what was it, Rico? Yeah.
Oh,
You
funny.
should have seen me back then. It's like I don't want to be that guy. So
Yeah.
even my time in the SEAL teams or whatever, I want that as a stepping stone to the next version of me, so I can bring all that forward as knowledge and experience, but nothing compared to what I am today.
Yeah, I love that. My grandma, I will never forget when I was in high school, she said, "These are the best days of your life." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, I'm going to be so upset if like the best days of my life are on this like tiny little front end." And so I love what you're saying. Like, the best is yet to come and you just keep
Yeah.
working to get there. Now, the inner game, I think that is something it's so unique that you kind of had that fascination and insight as a young person, but the inner game, and I love that, your coaching is UVU because let's be clear that that's who it is, you
Yep.
versus yourself. Um, but when you think about that inner game and there's so much happening, what do you see in clients are the thing, like the game that they're playing most often against themselves? Are there a couple of things that you see, like they want to be at this place over here, but they just can't quite, like there's something inside that inner game that they just, the hurdle they can't get over, that they just, the gap, is there
Oh,
between who they
absolutely.
are and where they really want to be.
Yeah. So I've been very fortunate to be able to work with some pretty incredible people in my career as a coach already. I had the great fortune. And I tell people I've worked with executives in some of the largest banking institutions in the world, in Asia, and I've had the opportunity to work with the Philadelphia Flyers, the National Hockey League, and the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, and coach with those guys one on one and with the whole team. I work with veterans of PTS that come back from combat, that have done and seen things in combat that are really challenging. And there's a common denominator around all of them. They want to get better. They want to become a
Yeah.
better version. They want to keep growing. And we have this desire, and it's like this motivational triad, right? So the human brain, it wants to seek pleasure, it wants to conserve energy,
Mm.
right? And it wants to stay safe. Anytime we choose to get outside of that, your brain's going to freak out, right? It's going to freak out. I'm no different. I'm not special. Like, it's going to come up. It's that voice in our head that goes, "Hey, what are you trying to do? You don't have to." Like, I'll give you an example, because working out is a pretty easy example. And so here's the voice in my head. Let's say I have a 5 round workout. It's 5 rounds, and I started off, and I know this is the pattern that's going to present itself. So I get about 2 rounds into that 5 round workout, and all of a sudden that voice starts popping up and going, "Hey, you know what? That 5 rounds, do you really need to do 5 rounds today? You don't really have a whole lot of time, and you're really starting to feel tired already, and your muscles are pretty sore from the day before. Why don't we just do 3 rounds and maybe we take some weight off because that weight's pretty heavy today?" And that voice, "Dit, dit, dit, dit." It's like, okay, that voice in our head is like, "Thank you very much. That lets me know I'm human." What I choose to do when I hear that voice makes all the difference in the world,
Yeah.
because that's the key. It's like we all have that voice that's talking to us. We all have that desire to want to stay safe, right? Not to extend our energy and to seek pleasure, right? And that's why we go, "Man, it would be so nice if I could just hang out, watch the movie, and eat bonbons all day on the couch." Or do I get up and write the email? Or do I go study something that gets me out of that comfort zone? So we're constantly having this battle between ourselves where it's that, some people call it that mammalian brain,
Mm.
and some people call it that monkey mind, right? That monkey mind that's just chattering. And when I learned to have a relationship with that and not make me wrong for having those thoughts,
Mm.
but to understand that, oh, it's okay. I'm just human, having a human experience. Now, what am I going to do with it? What do I want to do with it moving forward? Am I going to buy into it and make it right? That's easy to do. Or am I going to move past it, use my prefrontal cortex and use the tools of coaching and the tools of development to get me past that?
Yeah.
And you see it every day in so many walks of life. And we all have to overcome that constantly because it never goes away.
Yeah.
We just get better at recognizing it and choosing, and we have a relationship with it that's like, "I'll thank you for sharing. I'm going to move forward anyway." I used to want to make myself wrong for having that feeling or
Sure.
those thoughts, and those urges, and it's just like, I've let that go much better than I used to. I used to beat myself up going, "Oh, you're a failure. I can't believe you're thinking about this. Why do you want, you're a quitter. You're going to quit anyway." Blah, blah, blah. And if you buy into that, man, it can take you down that negative loop so fast.
Yeah.
But once we realize, like, wow, we all, and I hate absolutes, right? I don't
Yeah.
like saying
Yeah.
that. Most of us have that voice in our head, and it's like, what are we going to do about it? And maybe this is an opportunity. Maybe this is exactly where I need to be so I can grow and appreciate all the development that gets to happen. So now I just start reframing it instead of going, hey, that's wrong. I must be wrong. If I'm having these thoughts, I must not be doing it right. I should quit. Yep. Instead
Yeah.
of going, wow, there's such an opportunity to grow here. This is so cool. This is what everybody goes through. And I'm going to choose something different. I'm going to choose the better version of myself. And maybe that's what it means to be human.
Hmm.
Maybe that's what it means to grow and become the best version of myself, is choosing to overcome that natural inclination to want to buy in, because we're tricky, right? We're
Oh,
very,
yes.
nobody can talk to us like we do ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We know all of our soft spots. We know all of our weaknesses, all those things that need to be said for us just go, oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, maybe that's better. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's the game. How
Yeah.
can I become that next version of myself? And that becomes, for me, my game is when I feel that, now I get excited. Now I know I'm up to something that matters. When I
Mm.
have that voice in my head going, oh, I must have a good workout going. Oh, writing that email, putting out that blog post, going for that next position, striving to become more. When that doubt and fear comes up, I know, oh, I'm up to something that matters.
Yeah.
Right. And I used to get that feeling all the time, like in the teams, like you're going out and you're jumping out of a plane or out of a helicopter, fast roping out, and those butterflies, like on the first tee in a tournament, those butterflies come up. And I used to get so excited in a positive way because I'm like, I'm doing something that matters.
Mm.
And when I didn't feel anything, it's like, oh, maybe I'm not doing anything that really matters right now. What do I need to do to drive and push so I can actually do things that matter to me? So I
Yeah.
never feared those. I not feared them like I get fearful, but every time that came up, I would use that as fuel for me to go, awesome, I'm doing something that matters. Otherwise, if I
Yeah.
bought into it, then I'd be frozen, freezing at the door, freezing on the first tee. So I had to choose a better story going, this is exactly why I want to be here. Now,
Yeah.
when I reframe the story that way, it changes everything for me.
For sure. And I love that you're shifting out of like I'm not bad because I have these thoughts that I want to make this easier. It just is. Like that is the human condition and that in and of itself can release a lot of energy from the
Yeah.
attachment, right? Of like, oh, I have to do better. I'm not good enough because I still have these thoughts. And then the option to choose. Like that is just so cool, right? Because now oh, that's an interesting thought. Would I like to entertain it or
Yeah.
could I pick something different? Okay, so my question is this. When you think about modeling that for our kids
Hmm.
or the languaging around how that can be shown in the family unit, what comes up for you? I know you have a Luca's 12, is that right?
Yeah. He's
Yeah.
12 now. And so the best way that I showed Luca on how to create resilience, how to overcome that thinking, I will talk to him about it, but more importantly, I demonstrate what that looks like.
Mm.
So an easy example is, I do these challenges every month. There'll be different challenges that come in. And next month, every December, one of the things I like to do is I will go into my pool every day, right? And I'll sit there for about
You're
5 minutes in
so
my
lucky
pool.
you don't live in Wisconsin, Richard.
Yeah, I know it's all relative, right? For me, I live in Las Vegas, so the pool's probably high 40s,
Yeah, it's plenty
around
cold. Yes.
there. Yeah, it gets my attention, right? My brain freaks out when I think about going in there every day. And so I'll invite him to join me out there and we'll talk about the big four skills of mental toughness. We'll talk about why I do the things I choose to do to develop myself. And he gets to see his dad doing that and choosing to do that on a daily basis. I don't tell him this is what he should do. I tell him why I choose to do the things I do
Mm.
and how it helps and supports me. Because I know as soon as I start telling him this is what he has to do or should do, um, it becomes just his dad telling him,
Sure.
instead of modeling the behavior that I want to see.
What does that look like in maybe a real life scenario or ways you can model resilient behavior when things do happen?
Yeah, thank you, Cole. That's a great question. So I'm going to share a story with you uh, of a time that I thought the way I modeled the behavior is exactly, as I rewind it in my head, it's exactly how I do it again. So I'm
Mm.
really proud of this moment. And it was a difficult moment. It was one of the more difficult moments of my life. So my son at the time, probably he's 5, getting ready just the week of he's turning 6. And he was at a summer camp out there in where we live. And I went to go pick him up from the end of the summer camp. Last day at summer camp, kids all had a good time. He had a blast. As I'm walking in to pick him up, his friend walks out and she's got a sucker in her mouth. And she says something in passing like, "Oh, Luca got hurt," something like that. I'm like, "Oh, okay. I must not have heard her. She had a sucker in her mouth. No phone call, nothing. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
coming in blind."
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Oh, that's weird." And when I open the door, I see a crowd of people in a circle on their knees. And as I approach, in the center of that circle is my son. And as I come in, I see my son. He's bleeding from the head. And they give me some space. I lean down. I let him know I'm there. I take a breath. And they bring in an ice pack to put on his head. And I'm going, "Okay, what's going on? What happened?" And she said, "Oh, this whiteboard fell on top of him." And I look at this whiteboard, and it's one of those old school whiteboards. It's a couple 100 pounds. It's got
Mm.
those big wheels on the bottom that you can lock them down so they don't get moved. And it had this big wooden plank across the bottom of it to hold the erasers and the pens and stuff. And I'm looking at that thing. I'm like, geez. And I guess some kids were screwing around. They weren't supposed to move it. They locked it down so nobody tried to move it. They had a couple of kids that were leaving. They're sitting cross-legged having their suckers, and right behind them, they pulled it down on top of them
Mm.
accidentally. He just at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Sure.
So I'm looking at my son. He's bleeding from the head. They're like, "Oh, everybody's focused on the head." And fortunately, from my training, I was able to get past that. Watching, that was the first time I really saw my son with trauma like that,
Mm.
except from when he was first born. I got to see that too. That's a different story. Um, and when I was looking at him, I was doing the assessment. I pulled the people away. I said, "Let me do an assessment on him." I'm going down, and I felt his leg and felt a little swollen. And as soon as I tried to rotate him to see the rest of his body, I heard that scream that no parent ever wants to hear. Like when I first looked at him, like, "Oh, okay, he's crying, he's in pain." Usually they're scared. If I just reassure him, he won't feel as bad. But when I try to rotate him, I was like, "Oh my God." Like that's the type of scream you never want to hear from a loved one
Yeah, and you
or
just know.
anybody for that
Yeah.
matter. Like, "Oh, my son is in pain." And now the adrenaline, everything's just firing on all cylinders. And just in that moment, the counselor, the camp lead, looks at me and she goes, "Oh, should we call somebody?" And I look at her, and that's when I saw that flash of red, and I was just about to go full order on these people. I was about to punch people in the throat. Like, my loved one is hurt, and what the hell have you been doing?
Yeah.
Right? I just wanted to just rock some people's world. Like the pain that my son just went through, like it's that pain like most parents I believe would feel like, "Oh, I wish I could just take that onto myself. I
For
would take
sure.
double it right now, give it to me." And I couldn't, and that was so painful for me, and I just wanted to unleash everything I had in me, and I was about to just start swinging on about 6 people, adults in there.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I was looking down at my son, and I knew my son needed the best version of me in this moment. He was in pain, and I just took a breath, and I just said, "For him, do everything that matters for him." And I took a breath and I said, "Please call 911. Let's get an ambulance here." And I just focused on him and what I could do to help him. And we looked around, we did an assessment the best we could. And I just kept reassuring him, and I just kept making sure that I stayed calm because I knew my energy was going to be reflected onto him. He was looking for cues from me. He was
Mm.
in pain, but I knew if I freaked out, most of the people in there were going to freak out too. And it's
Yeah.
going to turn into a screaming session. I get to be right. I get to be the freaked out parent.
Mm.
But in that moment, I said, "This is not about me. This is about Luca. This is about him surviving this the best that he can. And so the fire department and police came, and they ended up taking him to the hospital, and I followed him. I called his mom, and it was the first time, she had heard. Nobody called us, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those things. It's like I could have gone off on him, and I said, you know what? Right now, it's not about that. It's about taking care of my son. And so we got him to the emergency room. They took him in and took x-rays, and he was a champ all the way through the process. And he had ended up, he had a cut on his head, and he had snapped his femur in 3 places.
Mm.
And so fortunately for us, he didn't bleed out internally. I saw some swelling in there. From my prior experience, I know that's a severe trauma to the leg, and you can hit an artery real quick and bleed out fully within your cavity of your leg and your hip. And so we were really fortunate not to have that happen. But he was in surgery. They had to pull the femur apart and put rods in, and it was a process to get him back. And from the surgery, we had a great surgeon, and he told us, he's like, hey, I don't know if the growth plate is corrupted or not. So he may have that same size leg for the rest of his life. And at that point, just like, my wife is just awesome. And we were shoulder to shoulder all the way through this process together, knowing that whatever happened, we were going to be a team for him. And we were going to show up for him and love on him and get him moving and rehabilitated the best that we could. And so that's when I made some videos on that process, because we got a lot of people asking questions, how he's doing. And I made this one for my own therapy, right? So I could get through it, and for him to see how resilient he really is. Like, kids are absolutely resilient, and I wanted to embed that in him. So I made these videos of him overcoming that adversity, and we got to watch it multiple times. We still watch. I mean, it gets actually, it's one of the most incredible videos I've ever made for myself personally, because it never gets old for me. Like, to watch him at that age, and he gets to keep watching it. So whenever we feel like we don't want to go any further, or, it hurts, or we don't want to continue, man, we just throw that video on and just watch him as a kid coming. He's in a wheelchair for months and having to go to school. And Tanya and I would pull up to this front of the school. We'd jump out. She would run around the back and pull out the wheelchair. Actually, I pulled out the wheelchair. She would drive, and I'd pull him out of the car and set him in his wheelchair so he could get to school. And he never missed a beat. Like, that kid is just so incredible. And his attitude all the way through it was an inspiration for both of us as well. So as a family, we never thought of ourselves as victims. We just thought of, hey, life is going to contact us in unforeseen ways. And this is one of those. How we choose to deal with it makes all the difference in the world. So the training that I did for my whole life led up to that moment, so that I could perform in a way that helped me serve my family. Or it could have been another kid that I didn't know. It could have been a stranger, and I would have shown up and I would execute it the same way, because I was able to have the training to be able to do things that others weren't able to do in that moment. But it really landed home for me how valuable it is to train on a daily basis for the adversity, so that when it hits, because we know it's going to hit, it could be an illness, a sickness, health, the economy, job, pick your poison, right? It's going to happen. That's life. How we choose to deal with it when it hits makes all the difference, right? And we probably have met people that got knocked down 2 weeks ago that haven't gotten out of it. Some people 2 months ago, some people 2 years ago, some people 2 decades ago got knocked down, and they still haven't gotten up from it. So training on a daily basis lets us build that muscle, so that when life contacts us, we can get up. It's not about how good you are when life is calm. It's about how you're going to show up when things are difficult, when things are unfair, when things aren't going your way. And that's really one of those stories that still sticks out for me and for our family. I'm really proud of the way I showed up in that moment, because it could have gone sideways real fast for me.
Well, and I love, that you do the hard things and you get in the pool when it's stinking cold and it sucks, and but so that when something actually hard and you're, that's always been one of my favorite sayings of yours, that I'm going to start punching people in the throat, because that's like I can like feel, kind of the oomph behind that. But so that when that sensation rises up, you can make a choice, because I think for a lot of people the experience is that there isn't really a choice to be made when those things contact us, because we haven't been in the routine of just training the hard stuff. So I mean, what a beautiful story for your family, and something that I can only imagine, like, the way that I mean, he was only 5 and 6 when, this scenario happened, like, the way that that can influence how he feels about his own confidence and the hard things that he can do, when as a 5-year-old he could do that. I mean, that's a pretty cool, legacy to start out with as a kiddo.
Yeah, absolutely. He is a fighter. And yeah, fortunately, and the follow-up to that is he was able to go in for another surgery, get all the hardware out of his leg. And so now he's back to normal. You wouldn't know it. He's just got a really ugly scar on his leg. And I just tell him, hey, we got to come up with a good story, like sharks and ninjas, let him know.
Yeah, right? What all
Yeah.
the things that went down.
I'm excited that this podcast is brought to you by mkforhealth.com. Have you been looking for a powerful antioxidant to help support your immune health? Hello, of course we have. Look no further. mkforhealth.com offers an amazing product called Nutrimetrics OPC3. This product is an isotonic capable food supplement chock full of powerhouse antioxidants. Ingredients like citrus extract bioflavonoids, bilberry, grapeseed, red wine, and pine bark extracts, all incredible antioxidants. Then you have the OPCs. The oligomeric proanthocyanidins are bioflavonoids found in fruits, vegetables, and certain tree barks that have exceptional benefit to the human body. Studies have shown that these OPCs are up to 20 times more powerful than vitamin C and 50 times more powerful than vitamin E in neutralizing free radicals. Hello, sign me up for that. Nutrimetrics OPC3 also contains the only isotonic form of pygaginol in the world. Number 1, remember, isotonic, readily absorbed. Number 2, pygaginol, my new favorite word, is a natural plant extract from the bark of a French maritime pine tree, and it is the most clinically researched and potent bioflavonoid found. If you're ready to support your immune health and modulate inflammation in your system, all with incredible powerhouse antioxidants, natural extracts, and ingredients, this is your product. Go to www.mkforhealth.com to purchase your Nutrimetrics OPC3 today. That's www.mk4health.com.
I think this challenge around reframing failure is a pretty intense one, especially I don't know what it's like for you in with him in the sports world, but like there's a lot of pressure on young kids these days to be the best of the best in everything that they try, and it becomes so performance based instead of your point around, am I learning? So what are some of the other ways that we can kind of help shape this concept of failure? Like one of my own things is like try to collect no's, because historically not my favorite thing to be told no. So now it's like, okay, I'm going to go collect them. So some of that like courage around being willing to take the risk, like how do we support those kinds of practices for our kids, well, and for ourselves, but for both our family and ourselves?
Yeah. So for my son, I really focus on, are you learning more than you knew a week ago?
Hmm.
Is your time, are you proud of the way you ran today? Did you give everything that you had? I'm never asking him, hey, did you do as good as that kid over there?
Hmm.
Or
Yeah,
how come
stopping the
that kid beat you?
comparison.
So I love competition, so that it draws out the best in us, but it's always about, did I learn? Did I become better than I was before? And how do I know? Instead of, how come you came in 5th place? How did 4 other kids beat you today? when you got first place last time? Like I
Yeah.
get away from those questions and just make it you versus you, right? Because that's really what it comes down to is me competing against myself to become better every day, because there's always somebody bigger, stronger, faster, smarter, more money, better looking, blah. If you get in that comparison cycle, there's always somebody out there
Yeah.
that has something more. So that's a losing proposition. But if I wake up every day going, how can I better myself today? How can I be a better partner? How can I be a better teammate? How can I be a better father? And what does better mean to me today?
Mm.
And not because, oh, if I could deadlift 250 pounds yesterday, I better be able to do 251, or now I'm a failure. It's
Yeah.
what is my best today? Because some days I'm going to wake up and my body's going to be beat, or I had 2 hours of sleep because the kid was sick all night and I was up with them. And today my best is 180 pounds. And I walk away going, I did my best today.
Yeah.
And you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to wake up and do my best tomorrow. So that's been believe me, it's not been a straight line. It's not been like, oh, this is how I did it. It's been a lot of trial and error, a lot of failure, a lot
Yeah.
of tears, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And to get to the point I am now, and I'm just going, wow, I'm just scratching the surface of what's possible. But that has probably been the most liberating experience of going through that, because now, like with Luca, he gets to see there's a way for him to compete where it doesn't matter what arena he's in, he's always competitive and competing in a way that's healthy for him, so they
Yeah.
continue to improve, whatever that's going to be, right? Because it's like me trying to go back into the SEAL teams today and trying to go through buds, like it would probably not look too good, right? That was a season a few years
Yeah.
ago, not
Yeah.
today, nor
Yeah.
is it my focus today. Am I a failure now and I wasn't back then? No, that's, it's
Right.
because I'm not competitive now compared to then. It's like that would be a silly comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Something I'm hearing a lot of is the aspect of modeling and being really curious. I'm really interested to know when you think about, I don't like to use this term, but like the head of the family. Like I think of like the parents as like the leaders of a family, and thinking about how we can take something that is really challenging for me as we think about being like the best leader we can as an executive or in our job or managing our team at work. And those same things can apply and maybe are even more important for how we show up for our team at home. So when you think about, being a really good leader, and it will be in both contexts, right? Because it's just being a good leader. But when you think about being a good leader in the family, what does that look like to you?
So for me, this is a key concept for me, is ready to lead, ready to follow.
Hmm.
So I take responsibility, but I'm always looking to give leadership to others. So
Hmm.
I'm really fortunate that my wife is the most awesome teammate ever. And she's a leader. We are partners shoulder to shoulder. It's not me in front or her in front. We're together and we're always communicating with each other for the betterment of the family. It's not like, hey, I'm the boss, I'm going to tell you what to do. Either way, none of us have that mindset. It's
Yeah.
how can we do this together? How can we do it the best we can together? So that's really key for us, is knowing that we're both ready to lead and ready to follow. And I'm always looking to give Luca leadership opportunity. So anytime I have a chance, like, okay, I want you to take me around the grocery store today, and here's the list of items. Let's go get them. I'm
Hmm.
going to help you. I'll put the stuff in the cart. You go, make it happen.
Yeah.
And then I will support him whenever he gets stuck, or if he has a difficult time or whatever it is, or, hey, we're going out to this park. I want you to show me how to get there.
I
Okay.
love that.
We're going to grandma's house. All right. I want you to take us out there. So I'm always looking to give him the opportunity to lead where he can, instead of always feeling like, oh, my mom and dad take care of everything, so I just sit in the back and play my iPad or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like I'm always looking for what, like, he'll get up, he's going to do dishes, he's going to help us make dinner, he's going to, be part of the team. And his mom is awesome at empowering him as well. We're always looking at ways to empower him to take the lead. And it's one of those things, it's like, yeah, when he's 5 and 6 years old, she's teaching him how to cut vegetables with a butcher knife, right? Some parents would be freaking out going, I
Yeah.
can't give my kid a knife. I can't give him any sharp objects. It's like, and when they're 18, how's that going to serve them? Right.
Yeah.
So there's always that point where you're like, oh, I don't know. It's like, it's a little, and you get the pucker factor going as a parent, right? It's like, your son today driving
Yeah.
away at 16 in the car. That's going to be, for all of us, it's like, oh my goodness, right?
Yeah.
But there's a point where we have to give them enough rope, right, to be able to become their own person. They're always going to be dependent on me. One of the greatest gifts I can give Luca is him knowing he can do it on his own. He's independent, and he chooses to be interdependent with others, right? Because he has great relationships, but he can think for himself. He can choose what he's going to do or not do, instead of just every time a question comes up, he's always looking to his mom or myself. No, I want him to be able to think through the problem.
Yeah, I love that.
Be able to start taking ownership of it and start working through it. And for us to have a dialogue about it as a family.
Yeah, I love that because without fail, at our house, if there's something that feels like, what are we going to do? Or there's some options here. How do we want to go about this? Without fail, my kids are the ones that come up with the really good solution or the best answer or like a compromise that works for everybody. I mean, it's just so funny. It's like, yeah, okay, this isn't my job to take care of. Let's open it up for everybody. And something great is most likely going to come out of that. So, yeah, I love that.
And it's not easy. I mean, like this year, he had the opportunity to walk to school.
Okay.
And it's like, oh, he's only 12 years old. And it's like, oh, it's like all you think of as a parent, all those things that could go wrong, you just flood in your head. And it's like, I trust you. I believe in you. You can do it. And he wanted to. So we gave him, not that it's easy, right? It's like, nobody said it was going to be easy, but we empower them to start taking that responsibility and the ability to start doing things without us. And it's challenging, and it always will be. Like, as he gets older, they're just different challenges, right? Instead of walking, he's going to be driving.
Yeah.
Or then he'll be out on his own going to college or whatever he chooses to do. And it's like, it never goes away as a parent. It's just different challenges.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, it's like sleeting here today, and I'm like, interesting first day to be a driver. It's
Yeah.
going to be slick and icy out. Yeah, those worries don't go away, but it's something really I hear in what you're saying, giving them the space to learn to trust themselves too, right? Like if Luca was like, "Hey, I don't think walking to school feels like the best idea." And if he, I have to walk by this certain house that makes me uncomfortable or, whatever it was, like, okay, great, we'll make a plan. But
Yep.
if he's into it and hey, I've got that, okay, cool. Go give that a try. I mean, it seems so simple. And yet we, as parents, there can be a lot of resistance to kind of allowing ourselves into that space where they can trust themselves. And I love what you said about being independent, but then interdependent when he wants to be, not because he has to be, that's a power move as a parent, I think.
And for me, I'm very sensitive. Like if he said, "Hey, it's cold outside and it's raining, and do you guys mind driving me to school?" I'd be like, "Absolutely, I'll drive you to school." I'm not going to go, "Hey, you need to suck it up and you need to be tough," right? Because I could do that. Like, you don't get it. I used to walk into school when it was, in the snow uphill both ways, right?
Of course.
It's like, that's not the tact I choose. I may ask him questions or whatever, but as soon as like, "Hey, this is what I would like from you, or can you help me with this?" Absolutely. I'm going to find a way to be able to support in a way that I think is for his best growth.
Yeah. Okay. Something I'm really curious about is, I mean, I have zero experience as a Navy SEAL, clearly, but something I've noticed from the interactions that I've had with SEALs and former SEALs is the real mindset shift that it is to be so laser focused on the team. And what I've seen that be able to do, not only for the group's performance, but even for any one individual's performance within that team, is just like, if you didn't see it happen, I don't know if you could even believe that that's the way that it works, but it's incredibly powerful. And something that I'm just, oh, like so passionate and committed to is helping people see their family as their most important team.
Mm,
So, what are some of the lessons you can share with us of like being in an elite team that then applies to family?
absolutely. So what I learned in the teams is it's just like we talk about with Unbeatable Mind, and Mark talks about I master myself to be in service.
Mm,
So I take that to heart, where how I develop myself matters. How I show up matters. First to myself. Self-mastery and service. So I'm choosing to physically train, to mentally train, to optimize this human experience of mine so that I can be in service for something bigger than myself. Because at the end of the day, there's got to be something more than just me.
yeah.
Right. So if I really want to flourish as a human being, we are hardwired to want to be with other people, to have something bigger. A lot of people look to religion and God and all these things, which is awesome. Like something bigger than just this one person. So it gives me meaning and purpose to go, I master myself. I train every day to be in service to somebody else. And whether it be the SEAL team or my family, it's one big family. But the most important thing I can do to serve others is to master myself. So emotionally, to work on the emotional triggers that I have so other people don't suffer my inability to be emotionally stable. Right? If I'm flying off the handle, if I'm making everybody else wrong, if I don't take responsibility, other people don't get to see the best version of me. And the team only is as good as the individual members. So imagine being with a group of people that work as hard as they can every day to master themselves to be in service to that team.
Mm,
Whether it's the family, whether it's your corporation, like we have the ability and the opportunity to go in and work with businesses and corporations. And it's the same thing. We go, okay, we're going to focus on mastering yourself in service to the organization, in service to your family. So if we can get outside of it, because at the end of the day, it's like, do I really want to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to work out? I don't feel like it,
yeah.
right? I don't want to get it. The bed's warm, it's dark, it's cold out there. And it's like, I just want to hit the snooze button and go back to sleep. That's being human. That's
Yeah.
natural. There's nothing wrong with you for thinking that. But if we have something that's bigger than ourselves, a greater reason to get out of bed than just ourselves, now it gives us the opportunity to do something extraordinary. So what I found is to have the life that I want, to be the individual that I want to be in the world, I have to do something that's bigger than just me.
Mm,
And so to master myself in service to something bigger than me, my family's bigger than me, and then my team is bigger than me. And then it goes into my community and then my, country, and then the world in
yeah.
general. Right. So
Yeah.
it's like, instead of me saying what's wrong with the world, let's just start with myself and let's start mastering myself. And if we all work on mastering ourselves, imagine what the world could be.
Hmm. It's a picture I'd love to see come true.
Yeah. And it's really humbling too, because
Yes.
one of the things that I learned in the teams, you get humbled really fast, right? Because outside the team's like, oh, you're a Navy SEAL. It's like, wow, that's really incredible. And in the teams, you're like, yeah, you're like everybody else. Get over yourself. Nobody cares. What are you doing today? Right. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
But we're there for a reason bigger than ourselves. What we do matters. And if we can take that into our family and go, my family matters. What my family does in the world matters. So why would it be any different than in the SEAL teams or in my family unit, my team here, that we show up every day for each other going, I'm doing the absolute best I can in service to the team.
Yeah. I'm interested to know. So, something I think that's really unique about family that we kind of are able to or choose to shield ourselves from sometimes in the outside world, but your family will push all the buttons, right? Like
Oh yeah.
the control, the emotional control, like you mentioned. Like these are things that in family you can't hide from them, even if you want to, because they're just right there on the surface, and the people are so close to you. So, what are some things you think of that people could start to, instead of just recognizing like, wow, I'm angry right now, or I feel impatient right now, or whatever the sensation might be, how can they start to come more in contact with what is underneath of that reaction?
So you're right. My experience has been nobody can get underneath my skin like my family,
For sure.
right? So, I mean, if I don't know you and you're just a person on the street trying to irritate me or get me uh, irritated or get my heart rate up, it's pretty
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah.
Uh, but my family can do it in a heartbeat, right? Because those people that are closest to us, the ones that we love the most, are the ones that definitely can get underneath the armor, get underneath the skin, and trigger us. And like you said, one of the first things I do as soon as I'm triggered, I have an emotional response. If it's not appropriate, at first I shift into curiosity. Wow,
Mm.
I'm feeling angry right now. That's not that's interesting in a way, but I shift into curiosity and I go, why am I angry? And a lot of times it's because they're reflecting the same behavior that I have back
Hmm.
to myself. So if they're being um, emotionally immature, or they're saying sarcastic words, or they are not listening, or I told you twice, and now you're coming back, and it's like now I shift and I go, and how do I do that as well? Especially when an easy example is like not listening,
Hmm.
right? Oh, I told you twice about this, and now we're here, and now you act surprised that we have to go to this thing, and it's like, oh, how often do I do that?
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
instead of me being righteous and like, oh, you should have written it down in the calendar. And, of course I'm not going to go because it's not in the calendar. I told you 2 times to put in the calendar, and I get to be righteous and I get to dig my heels in. I did that for a while. Doesn't work well.
Mm.
And so now I shift into curiosity. I go, wow, I forget where else do I forget to tell people about this? And so it's a reflective experience for me, a curiosity experience, because I need to shift out of righteousness, because I can position myself there and fight to the death to be right. And that does not work out.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you get to be right and you get to not have a relationship as well, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, do I want to be right or do I want to have a great relationship? And I learned that from my wife,
Hmm.
because I remember we were having some argument and I was just, little peacock with my feathers going up and prancing around how right I was. And, I'm so right. And I was just like spiking the ball in the end zone and just doing the dance. And she's like, oh, you can be right or you can have a relationship. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? Of course I'm right. And finally, some people have harder heads than others, and it started sinking in. I'm like, oh, okay, gotcha. So
Yeah.
that was a great lesson for me to learn. And it's one of those lessons that has to constantly be learned. So it refines. I become more aware. A lot of lessons in my life didn't, it's like, oh, I learned it once and now I've got it all figured out. It's like, no, I have to constantly be learning the lesson, constantly. That's right. I'm learning a deeper level. Oh, I thought I had that figured out. Life is telling me it's not quite learned
Yeah.
yet. So you will pay the price until you learn it at a
Yes.
deeper level. And a lot of that is just lack of awareness. And as I continue to become more aware, then I have the ability to get over myself and to take in the lesson.
Yeah. Okay, I have two questions for you. One being creating awareness, because for a lot of people, um, they might see awareness as like, I'm aware that an animal walk through my front yard. Like something that you can see with your eyes is easy to come into awareness. Although we drive by the same car every day and then don't realize what it is, right? So
Yeah.
not always. But in terms of building the inner capacity for awareness so that thoughts become almost like something you can see with your eyes, what are some of your favorite practices for that?
So for me, I love breath practice. I do box breathing on a daily basis, and it's an awareness tool. So if I do it for 20 minutes, the first 5 minutes or so, we're just shaking out the cobwebs and de-stressing, right? Getting my body in a state that can actually receive information. So I start quieting the brain. And then the last 5 minutes or so is when it really starts to allow. And what I tell people is my thoughts. When I get to the point where I'm like the mountain and my thoughts are like the clouds just going by, and I'm not trying to attach them, I'm not trying to judge them. I'm just allowing. I
Mm.
just allow. And that's been really powerful for me to create awareness that a lot of times I want to capture a thought like, oh, why am I thinking that? You're evil. You're a bad man. Why would you think that? Oh, that's a good thought. I should write that down. Hold on. I can't do this meditation thing because I've got all these great thoughts popping up. So this is totally taking me out of my I gotta have a notepad right next to because that was good and I'm gonna forget. It's like blah, 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 blah. It's that brain, that monkey mind just going. And if I can train my mind to release, let go, trust, and it's like, wow, where else in my life do I need to let go, release, and trust?
Mm.
So it's just a tool for me to constantly train my mind. It's constantly training and becoming better, more aware. And this is simply a tool to allow me to detach from being attached to my thoughts, being attached to think those thoughts are me, or can they just be thoughts that I
Mm.
get to observe? And so it's a tool for me to train. And I remember it took me a good year for me to really start to get it. And I'm not even there yet. I'm much better than I was a couple years ago, but there's definitely so many more levels to it, which is fun because there's no finish line to it at all.
Yeah.
But the first few times, they're like 20 minutes. I was like, are you kidding me? I've got things to do. I'm
Feels
not
like
a
an
monk.
eternity.
Yeah, I'm not a monk on the mountain. I don't have all day. And it was like 2 minutes in, I'm like, oh, I'm tapping out. I can't, I quit. This is stupid. You're stupid. Everything's stupid. And when I started to create an awareness, like, what is that part of me that just freaks out and can't calm down? Maybe there's an opportunity to learn.
Mm.
That's why I'm so fortunate with Mark Divine, my mentor, my coach, um, to show up in a way that allowed me to go, well, maybe I don't have it all figured out. Maybe there's something here for me to learn. And I hope all of us have those mentors that come into our lives that give us the ability to see something we may not be able to see on our own, that they
Mm.
model something for us to go, maybe I don't have it all figured out. Maybe there is something here for me to learn. And whoever it's going to be shows up in such a way that you go, okay,
Yeah.
they show up in a way that I want to be more like. Maybe they have something to teach me.
Yeah. And it's so humbling, but in like the best,
Yeah.
most delightful way. Yeah. Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask you is I know for you, like your why and helping people cultivate and understand what their why is, that's a big deal. So,
Yeah.
how much, if somebody's listening to this and going, what do you mean my why? Like my why for what? Give us a little context for that and how people can start to tiptoe toward that bigger, better, more powerful vision where they have something they're mastering themselves to serve.
Yeah. So it keeps getting deeper for me every year. I have a better understanding of how powerful this concept is, this purpose, this why. Like, why do we get out of bed every morning? Like, why get out of, like, if, just ask yourself, like, why? That's one of the most important questions you'll ever ask yourself in the world. Whenever you have doubt, and he's like, why? Like
Mm.
the 2-year-old, go back to the two. They have infinite wisdom. Just keep asking why, and you'll get to the heart of it, right? And so it's like, yeah, give yourself permission to ask the hard questions, like, why get out of bed? Why go to work? Why raise kids? Why choose to go through the struggle of becoming the best version of yourself? Why does it matter? Why not just go and eat Doritos and watch TV and, have a 12-pack every afternoon?
Mhm.
Why not? And, or why choose to train every day? Why choose to do meditation? Why choose to get outside of your comfort zone and to go against that mammalian part of your brain and develop yourself in a way that becomes really human? Why not just go with what feels good in the moment? And as we start asking ourselves why and why and why, and not judging, right? Not making yourself wrong, because a lot of it's like, oh, I just do that because that's what everybody else has done.
Mhm.
Oh, that's what I thought a man like me at my age is supposed to do. Oh, that's what I thought I was supposed to do. I thought I was supposed to do this. That's what people expect of me. And it's like, why would you do what people expect of you?
Hmm.
And why would you? And so it's a journey, right? And it's a very, for a lot of us, a very tough journey and a lot of really hard questions when we keep asking ourselves why. But if you're willing, if you have that warrior mentality to be leaning into the things, you're willing to get uncomfortable for things that matter. And if you're like, I choose to have this life matter, now you can start asking the deeper questions. Why?
Hmm.
Why choose a life that matters? Why not just do what you feel like? We're just animals. Just do what you feel like in the moment, right? So part of your brain gets attracted to that. It's like, yeah, let's just eat cake and Doritos and watch Netflix all day.
Yeah.
Why not? And so if you can go there, well, because of X, Y, and Z, or because that's not really what a meaningful life is. That's not what I really want in my life. Oh, okay, great. What do you want? Well, I know I don't want that. Well, that's a great place to start. If
For
we can
sure.
start with what we don't want, that gives us permission to go, well, if it's not this, this, and this, it starts opening up space for things that maybe it is.
Hmm.
And then we constantly just keep asking ourselves, like, what do we want? And a good place to start, because that's a big question. A lot of us don't even know what we want. But an easier question is, what do you not want?
Yeah.
Because a lot of us go through and we're like, oh, we're out drinking every night because we think, we saw all the commercials and everybody's having fun on the beach with their Corona and they're playing volleyball and, this is the life. And you out there and you do that for a little bit and you're like, maybe it's not all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah.
Maybe, it's like, okay, that was fun for about 3 days. It's like going to Vegas, right? Vegas is awesome for about 48 hours. Then most people are like, okay, I'm either going to die or I need to go home.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, okay, what am I making up about this that's being fed to me? Am I strong enough to ask, what do I want?
Hmm.
So we see all these things that people say that we should want. And it's like, is that true? Is this really true? Am I strong enough to ask the hard questions? Am I strong enough to go, okay, I've been doing this for the past 20 years, 30 years. And then I come to this realization that it's like, oof, that's not the path for me.
Yeah.
Am I strong enough to go, I'm going to shift? Or am I just going to go, well, I've been in it too deep. I'm in too deep. I'm just going to keep going, even though I don't want to, even though I know this is not my path, but it's just too hard not to. That's a very sad place to be. And we can shift out of that, but it takes time. But whatever it's going to be, like I'm one of those people. It's like, whatever it is, I don't say, hey, you should be able to self-actualize and you should make $1 million and you should do all this, because that's just my labels going on to other people. But what I do as a coach is I ask, why do you want what you want?
Hmm.
And are you sure you want that? And then I just constantly keep asking. And whatever we go for, I just go, okay, here's what I want. And I'm willing to wake up every morning. Like I have my vision, like my purpose, my passion, my principles, my one thing in 3 Ps. This is a document that's that I have. And I ask myself every day, like, is this true? I'm strong enough to go, is this true for me today? Because I know as soon as I'm unwilling to go, is this my truth? Then I'm playing a game that's just not real.
Hmm.
So everything I learn, as a coach, and I'm teaching people, and I'm willing to go. Everything I've learned up to this point, I'm willing to peg at a 90-degree angle if I find something that's more truthful. If I find
Yeah.
something that's better and more real, absolutely, I will shift on a dime and go that direction. I'm open to that because it's a growth mindset. I don't have to go, hey, okay, here's the system I've learned, and I'm just going to be narrowly focused on this so that nothing can deviate from that, because I can't afford to have new information come in and make it like, oh, the last 20 years has been absolutely going wrong,
Yeah.
or there's better way of looking at life, or maybe a new way of being in the world. And it's like, to me, that's the dangerous place to be, where you
Yeah.
have this dogma and it's like, oh, well, this is how my family grew up and this is how I'm supposed to be. Right. And
Yeah.
it's like, for me, it's like, ooh, that's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah. And I also hear, for someone who would be working with you, how empowering it is to know that not only does your coach believe for himself that the more true thing is worth turning for, and if there's a more true thing for any one person, that you have somebody who knows what that's like and has experienced it and knows how to lead you down that path. Because I think for a lot of people, that's actually a really scary place to be,
Yeah.
knowing that there's a need for a pivot, but that the 20 years behind them, they don't want it to feel like it was a waste. But it wasn't a waste, because it was only leading you to the place where you were ready to pivot. Right. And so starting to
Yeah.
shift some of the framing around that too, and how exciting it is to play with, like, okay, well, that was that. It just is. And now
Yeah.
what? It gets to be so fun.
Yeah, and we get to reframe it, right? So it's all a story. So we get to look at that previous 20 years and take away and extract all the lessons and the development that it's taken, and your ability to appreciate who you're going to be moving forward because of the person you were before. And you
Yeah.
can appreciate all the new things you get to have in your life as well. So we're playing this huge game called life, and you really can, whatever the thoughts you're going to have, repeat it in your brain over and over and over, and then we have a tendency to call that truth.
Mm,
Right, so all these are just patterns. It's like, well, if that's your truth, wouldn't it be cool just to make up a story that really serves you in a way that is just blows your own mind? And it's like, wow, imagine
yeah.
if you can program your mind in a way that allows you to believe in the most amazing life possible.
Yeah. And if we then had lots of people who believed in that, I mean,
Yeah.
and then lots of families and kids who, oh my gosh, their kids just know how to experience that because they've watched a parent go through it. I mean, it is just such a massive opportunity that just, it's like waves. I don't even think of it as ripples. I think of it as like crashing waves of change that are just so powerful and empowering.
That's the
So
common
excited.
theme I hear all the time when I'm coaching people. They're like, I wish I would have heard this when I was 15.
Mm,
Like, gotcha.
yeah.
You're hearing it today. Are you willing to hear it? Are you
Yeah.
willing to do something about it? Right? Because a lot of stuff that we coach, we talk about, it's not new, right? A
Right.
lot of things we learn are thousands of years old. Are we strong enough to hear it?
Mm,
Are we strong enough to take it in, digest it, and go, you know what? Today I'm doing one thing. Today I'm moving forward in a direction. Today I'm going to have the courage to do something, to be something different, instead of just getting into the pattern where you're just going through the motions.
yeah. That pattern doesn't feel very good either. So
Yeah.
it's fun to be in a different pattern.
Yeah.
Okay, for folks listening who are like, hey, I'm really into this Richard Thompson guy. Where do I find out more about him? Where should they go?
Yeah. So they can go to uvucoaching.com. That's a good place to see me and reach out to me if you want to have a chat. Please feel free. I have my calendar in there you can get to, and I'd love to sit down and see how I can serve you. That's probably the best place. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, but you can find me through the uvucoaching.com. That's probably the best place to go.
Beautiful. And we'll share that link in the show notes so that people can hop right over there too. Well,
Awesome.
Richard, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us here today. I just really appreciate I mean, we don't have a lot of opportunities so far to speak with people who really know some of the ins and outs of being on an elite team and what that looks like. And then, oh, by the way, how do we just take those same concepts and put that into family? And it has been coming to us so much recently about resilience. I cannot even tell you how often people have asked me, what can we do? Our kids have become so not resilient in the last, especially couple of years. And so often I just think like, well, we have to be the home base for that. Like, what did we show our kids in the last couple of years that says, hey, we can do this? Like, this is going to be weird. It might be hard, but we're going to do it. And so I just really appreciate the insights that you were able to share and the ways that we can really just show up and model it and share it with our families so that we can grow a resilient and ready generation who, like you said, get to choose what their life will hold.
So I'll leave you with one more tidbit here.
Yeah.
So create an elite team. So to create an elite team, you develop yourself, master yourself, right? You set an incredibly high standard, right? To live into. The team will live into whatever standard you set. Either you're going to do it consciously or unconsciously. You
Yeah.
all have standards. It's either explicit or implicit. And they're actually both as well. And then you model the behavior that you want to see. But in the elite teams, like every day we walked in, we knew we were going to have to perform. It wasn't about what I did 20 years ago. It was about what are you doing today? How are you showing up today? If you really want to build an elite team, you create a culture like that has a high standard. It's clear. I am mastering myself to be in service to this team, and everybody that shows up is switched on, ready to go in service to that team at a very high level. And it's very clearly defined, and nobody gets a pass.
Yeah.
From the top dog all the way to the new guy, everybody lives into that standard.
I love that. Lives into the standard. I don't know if you've done this. I have. We've had a lot of conversations in our family about this, but I've been considering writing this out. Like, what is our code or our ethos as a family? And
Yeah.
again, we've had the conversations of what that looks like, but I would love to have like a written out, like this is who we are and this is how we show up every day. It would be so fun.
So when will you have that?
Okay, coach. I will you know what? We'll do it over Thanksgiving.
Over Thanksgiving. Beautiful time to do it.
Yeah. I love it. And no people listening are going to know this, but Richard's making a note and he's going to reach out to me and he's going to ask me when it's done because he's a really good coach.
Yeah. Everybody deserves to have somebody that watches their back, right?
Yeah.
Because the best version of your family gets to have that ethos.
Yeah. This is going to be fun. And then where do we put it? Oh yeah, this is going to be great. Okay.
And
Okay,
everybody
and
gets to participate and bring it to life.
yeah, bring it to life. Okay, this is maybe a little mini challenge for everyone listening too.
I love it. Yep.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Okay, Richard, thank you so much. We'll share where to find you in the show notes. And thanks to everyone for listening. And we will catch you again next time.
Thank you, Cole.